Welcome to our third of an acre home in western Massachusetts. We're Jim and Jenny. We met 5 years ago and have been working toward a more resilient lifestyle in our home and in our lives. After studying permaculture around the world, we decided to take these principles to our own small property. We began with an open lot and lots of ideas. Our goal is to work with the natural environment, building and restoring soil, supporting both animals and plants, and growing as much food as we can close to home. Permaculture takes a whole systems approach to the natural environment. In permaculture, the focus is on earth care, people care, and fair share. If we can all spend some time restoring the land and promoting biodiversity, we can create more resilient communities and lives, and have fun in the process. We look forward to sharing what we are doing and hope you are able to find some ideas you can bring to your own suburban spaces. Enjoy. So here we are, late April, and started to get delivery of mulch. So we're going to actually start to kind of maintain our tree beds a little bit. So I'm going to take you around to the different types of trees we have, and then different way we're kind of maintaining the ground cover. So the main key is, if you're trying to keep trees, kind of fruit trees or anything, you want to really keep grass away from the base. So grass is a really dense root system, and it really takes all the water, takes the nutrients that hits it, and kind of creates a mat. So you really want to create kind of aerated bases around trees, and you can do that a number of different ways. So we have a couple ground covers, we got a couple mulches. So we're going to kind of show you what I'm doing right now is I'm going around to a lot of the different trees and using just a little fork to kind of take a little bit and kind of rough up underneath the tree just to kind of loosen it up, fertilize it a little bit, and then come back around with some mulch around some of the tree bases. So I'll kind of show you what some of that looks like. So this is our plum tree, just about to flower. And so what I've already done is I've come around the base and I've kind of taken this little fork and I've kind of taken it and kind of cleared the base a little bit. So what you really don't want to do is disturb the base of the trunk any more than it is. And you don't really want to pile up mulch against the base of a tree. If you start to pile up mulch higher and higher, a couple things will start to happen. You'll actually put soil above the graft. So particularly apple trees, like here, they're actually grafted. So the rootstock, which is here down, is a different species than the branches above. And that's the only way that things like apples will actually fruit to type. So if you take the seeds from an apple and you plant it, it won't turn into the same apple. So the only way to get variety is you take a graft. And so this is where the graft occurs. So you don't want to ever pile mulch above the graft, because then this tree will start to root. So you really want to, when you're thinking about coming in and taking the base of his tree, is kind of maybe loosen or take some of the debris or pile up away from the base of the tree. And then what we're going to do is come back and just sprinkle some fertilizer in and around the base of the trees, which will provide a good base. And this is our cherry tree here. We already did that yesterday. So we came through, we scraped around the base of the tree, and then came in and laid 1 or 2 inch layer of mulch around that. So that's the cherry tree. And another type of area we have here is actually kind of cover cropped. So we have ground covers. What we have is creeping Charlie. So the creeping Charlie is really actually starting to flower now. It's what we once thought of as a weed, but once we had bees, we really realized it's one of the first flowering plants in the spring. So the bees are going to go crazy for the creeping Charlie because it's one of the first things out to flower. So a lot of these ground covers that they do well over the late fall, and then they flower in the really early spring. And so what this does is it actually creates a really good ground cover. Because it doesn't climb, it kind of stays low to the ground. It's never going to compete with the tree. So we want to leave some space, and maybe we'll clear a little bit of this out to fertilize later. And to kind of continue on, we have our nectarine tree that, again, I've already came around and scraped some of the soil away. And actually a good example of what that turns into is, there's no tree here, but the mulch that you lay the year before, it kind of creates a little bit of a hard pan, and you kind of just want to break into that and rough it up. And I'll actually take back to some of the apple trees we got back here. I haven't gotten back to these yet, so I'll kind of show you what this looks like. So we have our graft right here. We really don't want to put any mulch above that graft, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break up the mulch that was here previous. So I'm just going to kind of break it up a little bit and then pull it back. And what this is going to do is it's going to just expose the roots a little bit. So we're going to expose the roots and provide a little area for us to fertilize in, allow more moisture to get into the soil, and then we'll come back through. So I'm maybe even a little aggressive on getting the root system in. So that's what we'll do around the rest of the base, and then I'll come back through and show you how that looks. So this is a tree base where we already finished that on. So what I'm going to do is I'll come back through. We just have some organic fertilizer, and really just kind of spread it around the base of the tree. We actually don't like to get too carried away with fertilizer. We haven't fertilized the last 2 years, just because it helps build a more resilient root system to kind of let the trees establish as they might otherwise. Otherwise, we might be falsely encouraging some growth. So then once that fertilizer's down, we'll come back through and throw some mulch on that. And you really just want a thin layer, and you don't want it to mound around the tree. You really want to kind of just create a consistent layer to kind of mimic a forest ecosystem. So a forest will have a lot of tree leaves drop and create a nice layer above the soil. So now that I've exposed the soil, I want to cover it back up with that mulch, and really let that root system strengthen over time. The quality of the tree really all has to do with the soil and the root system underneath it, and they can take off from there. So this is our peach tree, just about to flower, and this one we have strawberry plants planted as a ground cover. So the strawberries will hopefully give us something to eat in June, and then the peach tree will fruit over time. So that's just some of what we're working on now as far as getting the trees fertilized, getting them mulched, and then also getting some ground covers planted that are beneficial. And really just to summarize, what we're really trying to do is keep the grass away from the tree bases. Because again, grass will really outcompete the nutrients for the tree, and it'll really stunt their growth over time. So you want to create access for rain, for water, for nutrients, and the soil. So I got some nice day today, and gonna get outside and build another garden bed that we got right here. So in the back we have an area that we had, we've been removing grass over the period of time. So this used to be a lawn, but now it's pretty much just soil, and it's not great quality. So what we're gonna do is actually take some sticks, some logs, some branches, and create what I guess a mini Hugelkultur. So that's basically a base of wood. So we're going to basically dig out a trench, store the soil, fill that trench with wood, and then put the soil back in over top of that. And what that's going to do is create a nice base underneath where water can collect, where there can be a lot of microbes. There's going to be a lot of fungus activity kind of breaking down the soil beneath in the kind of wood matter to kind of mimic a forest ecosystem. So kind of back here in the back of the food forest, we're going to get a little bit going. So this is next to one of our apple trees that will eventually grow and kind of shade out this area. So this will kind of give us a bed for production in the interim. So gonna show you a bit of what that looks like, and I'll show you some examples of what we've done with other Hugelkulturs in the past after we get through showing you how to make this one. So fast forward a half hour, this will be a shorter video than anticipated. The time lapse didn't save, so I'm just gonna talk you through what I've been doing for the last little bit here. So what I was looking at was kind of a rectangular area, and what I was doing was basically digging a 4 to 6 inch, Jenny called it a shallow grave, where you're just basically creating a little space. And then what I went and did is grabbed some logs, and I can show you where I grabbed those from. But basically I was placing them in that hole, and so that kind of created the wood that's now taking the spot and bringing it up to about grade. I then started adding soil back on top of that, and then eventually these are the mounds that I had pulled out. I'm going to put those back in so that the topsoil remains the top layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple things about how, I guess why we're even doing this, is we're basically reusing what we have. So when we started this whole adventure, we had 2 really big trees on the property, probably 30, 40, 50 feet, and they left the branches. So kind of the bigger stuff, I had them leave it all, and I had them leave all the wood chips. So we talked a little earlier about what we had done with all the wood chips, and what we do with these is these are probably 4 years old now, this pile. But we've been using them all throughout the garden. So we use them sometimes as landscape borders. So you place it down and you create an edge between kind of the path and what you want to be a garden bed. Now these have just been moved all around the garden. They have slowly degraded over time. And so now what we're doing is we're basically turning them into part of the soil. Now what I'm now going to show you is what the end product looks like. And this bed here, the same thing we did about 2-3 years ago now. So we dug it out, we filled it with logs, and then we put the soil back on top. And you can see just the bit of the edging that's left over here. And this was about 6 to 8 inches higher than the rest of the ground, but you can see over time it's actually lowering and lowering. It's almost about the same level as grade now, but you can still see a little bit of that hump. And what we have growing here is where we've been planting our garlic. So the garlic goes in the ground in the fall, and it's the first thing to emerge in the spring. So this is one of the beds that we used this same technique on, and so this is that one, and then the new bed we're working on now is over here. The second bit of repurposing that we've been doing from past videos is if we just relied on the soil that was there to put back, there might still be some logs showing. So we also have a pile of I'll call it soil, but it's kind of got grass on it now. So when we're showing you how we do the kind of the bed creation, where we rip all the grass out and then dispose of it. We basically dispose of it in a giant pile. And what that pile does is it turns into soil over time. So we're repurposing that soil. So if you kind of come down in, now we have nice rich soil that we can use. So that's what I've been sprinkling down on top, even before I'm going to take the topsoil and turn it back over onto it. So we probably got, 4-inch logs. We probably got 6 of them in a row, and about a layer and a half thick. And what we're going to do now is turn the soil back over into that, and kind of show you what the end product looks like. So I'm not sure I got a great before picture, but here's the end product. It's kind of like a pseudo raised bed. So after the fact, I went back in and I found some other logs that could kind of act as a nice little border, and then added a little mulch to protect the soil. We'll get these planted up in sometime this week, because it's early May. It looks like the last frost has occurred, so we'll get this planted up for the year, and over time this will slowly sink down as the wood breaks down and the air pockets kind of move out of it. So right now it's probably 3 to 4 inches raised versus the rest of the surrounding, but that'll definitely shrink down, because as you can kind of see, this bed here was the same probably 2 years ago, and it's almost level at this point. So hope you enjoyed. There's kind of like different ways to go about creating beds and using what you got. So we used some soil and we used some extra tree branches that we had laying around. So we'll keep showing you what we got going on. So today I wanted to go over some early season edible perennials. And the thing about early spring is there seems like there's lots of abundance. Lots of leaves come out, but there's actually not that much to eat yet, because most of the food we eat is stored energy over time, and you actually need a lot of the sunlight of the summer for things like corn and vegetables and fruits. You're not really getting those until the summer or fall. So what I want to show you is a couple things we have planted in the garden that we're able to eat early season. So right now we're in mid to late May, but some of these things we've been harvesting for the last couple weeks. So the first kind of more exotic plant I want to show right now is actually called sea kale, and it's a perennial. And most of the early season edibles are perennials because they can store their energy in the roots underground over the winter. So in the spring, the sea kale shoots up little, I'll call them broccolini heads. So we can just take these and kind of harvest them right here, and left with little heads that we can cook up just like broccoli. So that's kind of one plant we have going on. I'll take you back. A little bit more common one that you'll see at farmers markets is asparagus. So our asparagus patch here, and I'll come first to what you would probably typically think of as an asparagus. So it shoots right out of the ground, right from the roots. So it's a perennial, so you actually want to continue to harvest these year after year. So as the asparagus head comes out the ground, you actually cut it, and then you're left with your asparagus. So that's what you see when you buy them from the market. And the thing about asparagus is you're actually stealing the plant. So eventually you have to let the plant win and get to its full form so it can continue to store energy in the roots. What might be less common is to actually see what an asparagus plant looks like. So this is one that we've kind of left to go. So if you leave this head, it starts to put out little spreaders, and this is basically what it starts to look like. It starts to put out little feelers, and then over time it becomes really long and skinny and tall. So this is probably 6 feet tall at this point, and those will be put out, and that's what kind of stores the energy in the roots, so that the next spring it can shoot out of the ground nice and early. So that's asparagus. Another early season perennial edible is sorrel. So sorrel is an edible leaf, and it's very lemony. So you can kind of pick it right out of the ground and just kind of eat it right off the plant. And it has a nice lemony flavor. So that we use as a kind of a spinach replacement. And again, it's very lemony, very good to eat right fresh off the bush. And the nice thing about spring is it puts up the really young shoots are actually the best ones to eat. So we'll kind of continue around, and many of the herbs are very early season. So here's some chives that these were shooting up in March, so we were able to kind of pull some chives off. And a lot of the herbs are more the perennial herbs are definitely things you can harvest early in the season. But chives are certainly edible and things you can be eating. Another thing that we've been pulling and eating is actually dandelions. So dandelion greens, it's actually a pretty later in the season, but they'll kind of self-seed themselves around the garden. And pretty much every part of the dandelion is edible, but we'll actually come in and harvest the leaves and make dandelion leaf salads and various things, and then also harvest the roots. So the roots can make dandelion tea and other varieties. So looking around, that's kind of just in this walkable vicinity of some of our perennials, some of the edible perennials that we have around. Now it's not a ton, so it's not the kind of staples, the wheats, the grains, the fruits, the large vegetables, but definitely things that we've been incorporating into our food. So really, any kind of edible perennials are things that you can plant, and they can get you food throughout the season, especially early spring when there's not as much abundance in the garden. Hope you enjoyed, and shoot us some comments if you have any suggestions on any more edible perennials that we could add. Thanks, guys.